I think we're here. I apologize for these kind of bumpy starts. But anyway, welcome back. And it still says preparing live stream on this thing. What is going on? Every time I do it, it seems like it's different. Or I'm different or something. Okay, apparently we are live streaming. So sorry for all that silence. Maybe I'll learn how to get and find time to edit these in the future. So welcome back. So this is our program before Winter Solstice, and Winter Solstice is one of my favorite kind of times of the year. It's in this due north on the medicine wheel, and so anyway, we're kind of rounding this final lap of this year's journey around the sun, and there just always feels like there's this really powerful time at this point. And of course, this is a northern hemisphere perspective, but we're only 2 weeks now from the shortest night of the year, what we call winter solstice, and this marks, no, excuse me, the longest night of the year. And so it's sort of for those north of the equator, right? And then the further north you go, the longer the night. So at the North Pole, the night actually lasts like a full 6 months, where the sun never actually rises above the horizon after the full fall equinox all the way to spring equinox. Now, the actual period of full darkness with no twilights lasts about 11 weeks when you're all the way up in the North Pole. So I think that's a really interesting perspective of this like long, dark winter night. And of course, many people that live up in those northern regions, live through this cycle as well. And so I find that I really enjoy the Lapland mythology that talks about, how the Mother Reindeer, whose antlers are not shed during the winter, is this being that flies after the sun and returns it, carries it back into the sky, into higher enough in the sky to bring light. And it's the female reindeer, and she's usually pregnant, so it's like symbolic of all of this, new life when she carries it back into the heights of the sky. And there's also a very interesting theme of the flying reindeer, right, in the dead of night, which has a very interesting cross-cultural meme associated with these Arctic myths. So it's likely that our notion of Santa and the flying reindeer are derived from a very, very ancient Ice Age tradition, right? So I ran across this. I followed this, kind of thing every year and enjoyed revisiting it. But I found a new Substack article on it from Freya. So I would like to share that because it's got some great pictures as well. So let me see if I can figure out how to let that happen. I want to do some sharing of screens and also some music here, so hopefully we can figure this out. Oh, it always hits the wrong button. I'm so imprecise in my... Now it's got a new button with it. Always an adventure. Where is the share screen now thing? Okay. So, let me see if we can figure out how to get this screen looking a little better. Maybe that works. So, like I said, this is a Substack article from Freya on the Dear Mother, Amanita, and the Spirit of Winter Solstice. And I'm not going to cover the whole thing, but I want to do quite a bit of it, hopefully. So, um, it's got some very beautiful ways of understanding this time from this larger cultural context. So, winter solstice is the time of the antlered goddesses, the dear women, the dear grandmothers, the dear mothers, the antler mother, the old antlered one. She is known by many names across many northern regions. The dear mother guides us through the nights of solstice, carrying the light in her horns. Unlike the male reindeer, she keeps her antlers through the winter. She is the source of life, the keeper of the pathways, holder of the magic of the Amanita mushroom, and it is these magic mushrooms that the legend of the flying reindeer at solstice likely began. And there's some really interesting pictures here, so I want to kind of scroll a little slowly. Thousands of years ago, during the last ice age, women sat comfortably by fragrant fires surrounded by their community in circular tents made of reindeer antlers and mammoth bones, covered with animal hides. On their heads, the women wore crowns of antlers with mushroom felt around their neckbone necklaces, clattering in rhythm to drumming from drums made from reindeer skin, clapping and chanting. In these settings, the women took ecstatic journeys in order to heal their communities' bodies and souls and to ensure the return of the sun. The air was filled with the healing and antimicrobial fragrances of the jammy conifer trees, spicy angelica root and sweet grass, the earthy scent of moldering tinder fungus lit to ensure the life of the fire, mingled with the subtle pungent fragrance of the baskets of dried reindeer lichen. The sacramental scent of bread and honey, emitted by the dried Amanita muscaria mushrooms accompanied by sweet hypnotic fragrance of Labrador tea, would announce the beginning of the ceremony. Humans have had a relationship with reindeer since the last ice age. At the end of the Pleistocene period, reindeer were much more widely distributed over the world than they are today. As the climate warmed up at the beginning of the Holocene, 10,000 years ago, the species began to retreat north and their numbers decreased. Whispers of the ancient reindeer cult are hidden in the traditional shamanic practices of the northern reindeer herders around the world. There's a picture of one of the reindeer herders, and notice her garb. So ever since the early Neolithic, when the earth was much colder and reindeer more widespread, the female reindeer was venerated by northern people. She was the life-giving mother, the leader of the herds upon which they depended for survival. And they followed the reindeer migrations for milk, food, clothing, and shelter. And from the British Isles, Scandinavia, Russia, Siberia, across the land bridge of the Bering Strait, she was a revered spiritual figure associated with fertility, motherhood, regeneration, and the rebirth of the sun. Her antlers adorned shrines and altars, were buried in ceremonial graves, and were worn as shamanic headdresses. Her image was etched in standing stone, woven into ceremonial cloth and clothing, cast in jewelry, painted on drums, tattooed onto skin. While many historical explorations of the pagan origins of Christmas observe the link between Santa's garb and the red and white Amanita muscaria ingesting shaman, few mention that it was the female shaman who originally wore red and white costumes trimmed with fur, horned headdresses, or felt red hats. The ceremonial clothing worn by medicine women healers of Siberia and Lapland was green and white, with a peaked red hat, curl-toed boots, reindeer mittens, fur lining, and trim. Sound familiar? Considering that most of the shamans in this region were originally women, it is likely that their traditional wear is the true source for Santa's costume. And it is also very likely that they were the first to take shamanic flight with the reindeer on winter's darkest night. And while these women are largely forgotten today, the dear mother still lives in our Christmas cards, seasonal decorations, and tales of Santa's flying reindeer. And while we may not recognize her, I believe some deep old part of ourselves still remembers the original Mother Christmas, who brought light and new life to the world. So I will do my best to put this link into the video here, and I'm going to skip some of this. There's a great deal of wonderful detail about some of the different traditions and the different people that were involved in this. So I'm just going to kind of slowly scroll through some of the pictures and come down to the bottom of the article where we'll close. So again, I recommend people check out this entire article and follow this person, Freya. There is a woman on YouTube now that is actually doing some of the ancient shamanic calls and chants. This picture reminds me of her there in the corner. Very fascinating to listen to. I mean, it is amazing vocalizations. One of the things that I don't know if it's in this article, it may be, but there's this understanding I read at one of the places that was talking about how on solstice, oftentimes the shamans would distribute these dried mushrooms throughout the village, and had to climb down the chimney or drop them down the chimney actually, because the doors to these igloos and homes were covered in snow, and people had to drop them in. They were sort of in their little cave places, and so I don't know if that's a true example. I trust her information in here quite a bit. It seems well researched. And so she's saying a little bit here about Amanita itself. So I'm going to go ahead and read a little of this. So Amanita muscaria has an ancient history as used as an entheogen around the world, and it is everywhere. Some believe it was the original soma, Chinese mushroom of immortality, and was used in the Greek mystery cults. It is also associated with Santa Claus and his flying reindeer. What is known for sure is that the Siberian Sami culture uses it in various forms as a sacred medicine, intoxicant, and entheogen. It has deep religious significance in the cultures where it is traditionally used. The hallucinogenic effects and reports of nausea after ingestion dried mushroom caps vary, but most positive experiences report light having luminous and beautiful effects, seeing jewel-like objects with their eyes closed while having a relaxed and peaceful feeling. Medicinally, Amanita muscaria is powerful nerve and pain relief, calms the nervous system, and provides stress relief, providing relief from sciatica, anxiety, PTSD, menopausal symptoms, arthritis, depression, addiction, addiction trauma, oh, addiction, trauma, and promotes lucid dream work and visioning, returning us home to our true selves. So very similar to many other entheogens, but a very different biochemical pathway. And so, and interestingly, the reindeer favor these mushrooms. They like to eat them. So thus we have the flying reindeer. And here's a series of pictures from these traditions as well. If we journey deep into the recesses of our primordial memory, we find a strong affiliation with the antlered ones, evoking ancient remembrance of our old ways and ancestral connection to the dear mother, especially around the winter solstice. Remembering there was once an ancient dear mother goddess associated with the rebirth of the sun at winter solstice, and the female shamans took to shamanic flight with the dear mother on this sacred night. So may we drink deep from the well of ancestral memory and venerate the antlered ones during this time of the year. Okay, stop the share. And so I'm interested to see, how this comes out, in the sense that, I've not shared articles like that before, but hopefully it'll be accepted. I find, I'm hopefully just promoting somebody else's work. So I think I've seen other YouTube people do that. So anyway, but I do want to move into, a little bit of sort of my connection with it. And so I have on my SoundCloud studio a couple of original songs for the solstice. And so I thought, what I could do is share those with this. And I think the last time I tried to share the songs, I was actually also trying to sing along, and it seemed to work okay. So I may also try that this time. But I want to see about how I share screen and switch over now. Let's see, because we want to now do the more advanced sharing options. No, that's not it either. Okay, so share sound. Guess we'll do it that way. But so I think first I will just, before we play the song, read the lyrics and see if that, can help you hear it, even if I'm not able to sing along. So this first one is just called Silent Night, Holy Night, only it's, instead of the Christmas carol, it's a solstice carol. And it goes, Silent night, holy night, all is held in this womb filled with light. Sleep, my child, let your dreams take flight. Winter calls us deep within. Let's sleep on it all and choose again. Peace in our hearts and peace among men. Angels and saints, shine through the darkness. Give us your light and the stars to guide us. Until Mother Reindeer returns with the sun. So let me see if we can share. Sleep, my child, let your soul take flight. Sleep, my child, let your soul take flight. Winter calls us deep within. Let's sleep on it all and then choose again. Winter calls us deep within. Let's sleep on it all and then choose again. Peace in our hearts and peace among men. Peace in our hearts and peace among men. Angels and saints, shine through the darkness. Give us your light and the stars to guide us. Angels and saints, shine through the darkness. Give us your light and the stars to guide us. Until Mother Reindeer returns with the sun. Until Mother Reindeer returns with the sun. Sorry. Wasn't expecting it was going to be continuing on. Okay, so let me see if I can. I wanted to share with people I'm actually offering a little program here. It's here in person at the center, although we might be able to do some aspects of it on Zoom, which could be useful where, we're studying singing a little bit in this union, and I've recently run across some research. I mean, it's pretty intuitive about how important singing can be for, the same ways that it reduces stress, it reduces, like opens up the flow. We're breathing deeply, we're connected to the heart. It's like it's really good for us, as nature is, right? Going out into nature, similar kind of benefits as forest bathing. And so I kind of like all things connected with that, and I love singing. And I've sang since I was a child. We used to go up and down the highway to California to visit my grandparents, and that's often how my parents would entertain us, as we would learn to do rounds and sing along to popular radio songs and that kind of thing. And yet I'm aware that it's kind of a tragedy in our culture. I see so many people, because a lot of my programs I do, try to include singing. People feel very self-conscious and kind of held back in doing that. And I noticed that in indigenous cultures and tribal and more closely connected cultures to nature, the whole community sings and makes music together. And I think it's like really something that we need to do, is start sort of decolonizing music and taking it out of this place where it's something that's only a performance oriented thing. Um, I love to sing, and I can remember in childhood, feeling like sad and lost in a way, because I knew I didn't have a classic voice. I wouldn't, ever learn to read music, these kinds of things, right? So, and yet I still, held on to my love of singing, and I'm grateful for that, because it has taken me many places and uh, opened up many doors for me. And then in the beginning, I remember I started singing more like chants and those kinds of things. And they are, I think, a little easier. And sometimes the range seemed like I could do sort of the earth-based chants. The range was a little lower. And then when I began my practice, I actually, one of the first people that I was working with was a music teacher, and we did exchanges. And even though I was not like a full-time student where I was really studying music, she helped a lot by just helping me learn how to get into a wider range of my voice, that I was only using a part of my voice range, and they called it the chest range. And so she helped me get into the head range, and I still have trouble in the transitions. But there's like a beautiful thing that happened in that. And it came from a prayer that I had made when I, quit my job with the Lorton Penitentiary System, and, hung up my shingle as a pathwork helper initially, and, felt like I had found this property for Earthwalk retreat, and I was just so excited by it. And I just felt so grateful for everything sort of unfolding in this direction of my biggest dreams. And yet, it was interesting, because in that fullness of gratitude, I dared ask for one more thing. And I said, thank you, thank you, thank you. But if I can get one more thing, let it be uh, letting me, have an ability to sing more, to sing basically in praise of nature, to sing basically in praise of spirit, that there was something in me that loved to do that, and wished to, be able to do it a little better, not necessarily professionally, but so I hope that, my SoundCloud hymns, I'm actually looking for some help, and I may try to do some computer arranging and some stuff like that to see if I can add to the sound. And there's a few of them on there, my SoundCloud station under Darlene Rollins. Uh, I think at Follow Streams, I believe, is there. Hopefully you can find me. I'll also try to remember to put a link up. But there's all my original songs are there, and there's different recordings of them, some of them better than others, but they could all probably use an upgrade. But anyway, they've got the music. I'd like to get the words out there a little more typed into uh, the different playlists as well. But what I'd love to do is just be meeting together with people that want to learn. And there's a technique of sort of singing in union, of really having a person lead and maybe the musicians, but then we're just listening deeply to each other, and kind of like you're almost telepathically singing together. And I really like that feeling, and I love listening to the union of our sound together. And even, that helps too, because it doesn't matter if there's, somebody with a great voice. It's like together we sound in this much more full timbre and temper, and I don't know, it's really great. So please feel free to check out the website, go to the events. It's on the Humanitix events listing, and especially if you're in this area and want to come personally. But send me a note if you're interested in doing at least some work on Zoom. We can't like sing in union in that same way, but we can certainly learn the songs that way, and there are maybe some other things that we could do together as well, long distance. Okay, so let me shift back and let's do one more of my solstice songs. This one was the first one, called Winter Solstice Hymn. And this one was actually sort of recorded in a studio. I had a musician help arrange and had sort of overdubbing of my voice kind of thing. So let me share. Okay. Everything is just in the way of these screens. I guess this is why they have someone else doing some of this. Now I can't seem to get it off of here. The taskbar is right on top of it. There it goes. If anybody has secrets about all of this, I would love to hear them. All of this computer stuff seems so humorous to me in some ways, but also quite frustrating at times. So here we go, Winter Solstice Hymn.
Shine with
Okay, so I want to go over those words and just talk a little bit about it because, I found that the message that came in this solstice hymn was very beautiful and profound as well. So it's kind of the teaching of the medicine wheel in this song, part of the medicine wheel about the north and the ending and the rebirthings of things. So it talks about deep in winter's silent night, the light of the new year is born, and all of the stars shine with all of their might to remind us of our own. Now, in the recording, just as an aside, the original words were remind us of our home. And so either one works. I have taken to using that the stars are reminding us of our own shine. And each one of us is connected to the stars and has a shine of our own. In fact, the truth is, we have an amazing radiance. I'll have to see if I can remember and find that source, but I was reading something about it. I think it was I can't remember it right now, but anyway, yeah, that like we are the brightest things on earth. So, continuing with the hymn, goes with silhouetted branches raised into the vast night sky. I always feel that here, this opening up into the sky, because in the summertime I live in the forest and everything is like the canopy and it's all enclosed and sort of held in the green of the trees. And then when the leaves fall in the wintertime, all of a sudden the presence of that vast night sky overhead is there with all of those little lights. So with silhouetted branches raised into the vast night sky, firm trees with arms held up in praise, in reverence abide. I love that word, abide. Dwelling and abiding. I think we need to understand and bring back those beautiful words. So throughout winter's long dark night, life is held deep in the ground to center, restore, and renew, so the new growth can be heaven-bound. So into the winter, let's all go with faith and hope and love, to receive the wisdom of the night. And the night has lots of wisdom. So to receive the wisdom of the night and the promise of the sun, that within this annual cycle, this promise of the future, this promise of the return of the conditions that make life flourish, that make life most pleasurable, most fulfilling. And in the meantime, we can find a way to huddle together to pass the long winter night, to remember deep inside who we are, to dream our winter dreams, to be held in grandmother's arms, deep down in the belly of the night, alluding to another song by Libana, still as a seed, to rest, to renew. And I know in our culture sometimes this isn't happening, maybe not sometimes, maybe most of the time. We live in a kind of breakneck culture, so many things to do, so many squares to check off. And in a way, part of it is my age as well, like I'm getting tired of that. I want simplicity. I want us to find a way where we can, simplify. And I think, that's a part of our inner dive. And I've actually understood that there's a kind of potential, kind of larger universal cycle of time happening as well that will coincide with this on an even deeper level, to bring us into a state of stillness, this solstice. So it's very deeply needed. It may not be something that we can do on our own. It may be something that nature, it's a process, a larger natural process of the collective of humanity that will take us into a cocoon, which is a ceasing of all of the past activity of the organism, and a rearranging of everything inside. So let's see what this year brings us, this solstice into the new spring equinox. Um, it's always amazing what, is being birthed and the new things coming. And I want to continue to do in our series, more exploration of, how we bring the shadow, how we hold the shadow in a way that's healing. There's a really important, I think, time that we're in, and it is a time for this kind of outpicturing of the collective shadows, of the personal shadows, and it's a time that we can integrate it now because the light is holding it all. And so I think it's a different kind of movement. A lot of times we see all of this acting out of darkness, of lower self, of selfishness, of prejudice, of all kinds of collective darkness. And I think in a way we have to bring it into the light in order to change it. And so I'm holding all of this planet in prayer, but also not in horror, in the sense of this is the ultimate way it's all going to end. I mean, it's possible, and I know we've sort of been through cycles before, but my understanding is that we are in this movement upwards now, and so that we can build and develop a new vision of what's possible on the earth. And as we begin to understand more and more that collective reality is this product of this, our inner fears, our inner judgments, our inner, psychology so much, and do the inner work to integrate, then I think it will make a huge difference. And then I believe we also will have a kind of, we are in the midst of an ongoing blessing and grace on this planet, in spite of appearances and in spite of, well, not in spite of, but, like in honoring the reality that many people are struggling, suffering deeply even, and I spend some time listening to sort of disclosure kinds of YouTube videos. Sometimes it's hard to know, but when I hear people's eyewitness accounts, people's personal accounts of these things, I think that, it's probably true, and there's a lot that, people are bringing out, and revealing, not only in the sex trafficking stuff, but other things as well. And then, as we can make our inner choice as to what, who we are, of what world we want to live in. And I know there are so many amazing human beings out there who have no interest at all in rising above anybody else if they have to stand on top of them to do it. And I think that that's like sort of the fundamental difference that's behind this split in humanity. There's also some fears, that are old programs that have been hyped and heightened by, interests of the ruling and dominating, groups. So I think that there's a way that we're here, to look deeply and to see not only into our own depths, but into the history of, this modern world that we've inherited. And I know, and when I was a younger person, I wasn't much interested in history, but I'm seeing now, how important it is, and, how the history that I thought I was living through turns out to be quite different than what I had thought it was. So, it's sometimes affecting me in a frightening or, painful way. But I think the truth is that if we can just recognize that, we're no different. We're all in some ways wounded and working through and lost in a kind of dualistic, physical, mortal reality. And that, in so many ways, each one of us is it's a unique journey and experiment of, how to find a way to our deepest longing in our hearts. And sometimes that gets displaced on physical comfort and other things like that. And, yet once we arrive there, we usually discover that, it's great. I mean, I have no desire to lose my physical comfort. But, that's where I most confront myself in terms of sort of the limitations for my evolutionary understanding of things. Um, and to expand and challenge my faith a little more, that uh, I can find a new way to exist, even though I invested a great deal of my lifetime in trying to find my way in this particular story. Um, that just because this story is completed doesn't mean that I can't continue to find my way. And that there may be possibilities that we haven't yet dreamed of. I mean, already they're on the horizon. I'm not always so sure, what's benign and what isn't, how much AI, that kind of thing. It's like our county is right in the middle of, building these huge data centers. And so there's a great deal of conflict and brewing, struggle. Often the power is, largely in the hands of sort of not so much the communities, but the needs apparently of the greater whole for all of this. And yet, there's something that, we need to listen and maybe slow down. They say if we slow down, we're going to lose our edge and China will win. It's like, I don't know how we can reprogram sort of all of this, because it doesn't work. It just keeps creating the same things, right? It's not the way into the future. So we're all these creative, beings that are here trying to find our way, probing in the dark, feeling it out. And each one of us has, a unique aspect of the mission and a unique part of the vision and stuff. So I am finding it, both scary but also very interesting, to see how this is unfolding, and, how all of the polarities are kind of converging. I think I heard somewhere where right now, like all of the historical issues that have ever been on Earth between different groups of human beings are actually active in the present moment now. So all the timelines is what they're talking about, have converged, right? We are living all the timelines now, and it's something big is going on. I'm pretty sure. So I hope that everybody can kind of hold this larger collective transformation, do their inner work to stay balanced and stay in faith in the journey, and keep their humanity, keep their hearts, keep their deeper questioning. How much will they ask of me, right? Or how will I be caught up in one of these um, dangerous kinds of new frontiers that are happening within our own country, where we are going against each other. I mean, I've heard that quite a few citizens have been arrested in some of the raids, and unlike the promise where they would immediately be released once that's clarified, I don't think that's always been the case. So anyway, who knows what's going on out there? I'm not on the front lines for sure, but I do know that when something affects me deeply, that it's time for me to do some inner work with it, and to find my way of not going into negativity, into darkness, into frustration, into hatred, into fear. And so it's like it, nature has lots to contend with. It doesn't contend with fear, I don't believe. It doesn't contend with these kinds of defensive structures that the human has developed, and then, in my understanding, sort of continues to actually exacerbate the situation, and not truly protect us. And that the protection is in being who we are, in having our dignity, being humble, not being over anybody else, but being equal to everyone else, and to know the truth within, so that we can, discern. And then sometimes when we don't know for sure because we have internal conflict, then that's just the call to sort it through, to do our work of determining, not following somebody else's belief, but determining for ourselves what we each do believe. And it's a lot to find the answers to all of the confusions and the manipulations and the distortions that are out there. But I think there's an intuitive sense that we can, begin to access and utilize. And it has to do with the mask versus authenticity. It has to do with, agenda, and intentionality underneath what is being presented. And I think we're going to get more telepathic. The more we know ourselves, the pathward guide talks about, the more we can see where we might be even doing that, the more we're going to recognize it around us. So anyway, I think we're getting close to our closure here. And again, go to my website and see if there's anything that you would enjoy joining me for in this December. We have a solstice ceremony happening. I have my glow in the dark star labyrinth event, which is lots of fun. We're going to do a breath work and then have that ceremony. We're going to do some forest bathing. We're going to do some singing, and this is kind of the final gathering before a sort of pause, and I think a resting, or just a settling into the wintertime process. And then it'll actually be activated again into, the new vision and the springtime. But it's good, if you can, to really take some time out and rest yourself, and let yourself sleep in and dream more, and find a way to simplify and begin to just be in the present moment, listening deeply. And then I think we can hear the guidance for the next step and the next step. Having ADHD, I was never able to plan, so it was kind of like the challenge that led me to do fairly well with like not planning so much, but just in each moment seeing what's next and what's next and what's next. Now, certain things you have to plan, but that's part of the what next. So anyway, I probably will be doing this again on Christmas Eve, but that will be after our solstice. So everybody have a wonderful solstice. Take in that light in the darkness, and really bring in nature, bring in your inner nature, and sing to the earth when you can. Take care. Bye-bye.